Hello everyone, so in this video, I will be performing the basic OSPF configuration lab. So first, perform basic configuration on the R1, R2, and R3 routers according to the following guidelines. First, configure the router host name. Second, disable DNS lookup. Third, configure the exec mode password as class. Fourth, configure a password for console connections as Cisco. And fifth, configure a password for virtual teletype connections as Cisco. Let's go to the topology diagram and click on R1 and go to the command line interface. Then enter. The first command that we're going to use is the enable command. Enable command switches to the privileged level command set. Next is config T or configuration terminal. It enables configuration changes. Next is we're going to configure the host name for R1. Host name R1. The next is disable DNS lookup. So when a Cisco router is initially configured, the router's DNS lookup function is enabled by default. This function is only useful if the router utilizes a DNS server on the network. Otherwise, it will cause delay to users. When an erroneous URL is typed, the DNS lookup will attempt to find the URL on the DNS server. If no DNS server is available, the user's computer will hang while the lookup is performed. So to decrease user delays, if no DNS server is configured, disable the DNS lookup function on the Cisco router. So this will be the command that we are going to use. No IP domain dash lookup. Then enter. Next is we are going to configure the exec mode password as class. Enable secret class. Then enter. Next is configure a password for console connections. Line console 0. The use of line console 0 command is to connect a switch or a router through a medium console. Then password. To command set the password as Cisco. Next is login for authentication purposes. The next is configure a password for virtual teletype connections. So the command will be line VTY 0 to 15. The line VTY are the virtual terminal lines of the router. It is used solely to control inbound telnet connections. They are virtual, that they are a function of a software, so there is no hardware associated with them. 0 to 15 is a kind of range of command. We are giving a range of the virtual teletype from 0 to 15, which means 16 lines. Then password. Cisco. Then exit. Next is we're going to configure the interfaces on R1. So first is we're going to configure the pass Ethernet interface. The command will be intfa 0/0, then enter. The next is IP address. The IP address based on the given in the table is 172.16.1.17. The subnet mask of 255.255.255.240. Then enter. No shutdown. The no shutdown command enables the interface to move from administration down status to up, or in simple words, turn the interface on. Then exit. Next is we're going to configure the serial interface 000 in IP address The IP address based on the given is 192.168.10.1 with the subnet mask of 255.255.255.252. Then enter. Again, no, shut down. Then exit. Next is the serial interface 001 IP address. The IP address is 192.168.10.5 with the subnet mask of 255.255.255.252. Then enter. Then no, shut down. Then exit. The next is we're going to configure the OSPF on router 1. So the command will be router OSPF 1. 1 is a process ID which is given in the instruction number 1. Then enter. So next is we're going to advertise the networks on fast Ethernet, serial 00 and serial 001. So it will become network address of fast Ethernet 00. So it will be 172.16.1.16. Next is the wildcard mask. Wildcard mask is configured as the inverse of the subnet mask. So here the given is 255.255.255.240. So the inverse of it will be 0.0.0.15, then area with an area ID of 0. Then enter. Next is the network address of the serial 000, which is 192.168.10.0 with a wildcard mask of 0.0.0.3, area and area ID of 0. Next is the network address of serial 001, which is 192.168.10.4 with a wildcard mask of 0.0.0.3 with an area ID of 0. Then enter, then exit. Next is we're going to configure the OSPF router ID. This is to configure the loopback address of the router. So loopback address is a virtual interface and is automatically in the app state when configured. So the command will be interface loopback 0, then enter. So based on the instruction, it is given that R1 with address with an IP of 10.1.1.1 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.255, then enter, then exit. So next is we're going to configure the OSPF cost. So the command will be int serial 00. The OSPF cost is only applicable in serial interfaces as stated in the instruction. Then enter. Bandwidth of 64. Same goes for serial 0/01. Then enter, then bandwidth of 64. Then exit. Next is we are going to configure a loopback address on router 1 to simulate link to an ISP. So it will become interface loopback 1, then enter IP address of 172.30.1.1, the subnet mask of 255.255.255.252. Then enter, then exit. So let's check the results. So as you can see, all are in green lines, which indicates that we perform or we configure all correctly. Then close. Then let's proceed to router number 2. Same process or command that we are going to use on router 2. Command line interface, then enable config terminal. So the host name will be R2. Then disable the DNS lookup. No IP domain dash lookup. Then enter. Next is configure the exec mode password. Enable secret, then class. Next is configure the password for console connections. Line console 0, then password. Cisco. Login for authentication purposes. And line virtual teletype 0 to 15. Enter, then password. Then enter the password Cisco, then enter, then exit. So we're going to configure the fast Ethernet interfaces and serial interfaces for router 2. Int space 00 IP address. So the given is 10.10.10.1. The subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Then enter. No, shut down. Then exit. Next is the serial 000 IP address. The given IP address is 192.168.10.2 with a subnet mask of 255.255.5.252. Then enter. No, shut down. Exit. And lastly, serial 001 IP address 192.168.10.9. The subnet mask of 255.255.255.252. Enter, then no, shut down. Then exit. So next is the configure the OSPF on router 2. Router OSPF 1. Then the network with the network address of 10.10.10.0 with a wildcard mask of 0.0.0.255 with an area ID of 0. Then enter. Next, network address of the serial 00 interface, which is 192.168.10.0 with the wildcard mask of 0.0.0.3 with an area ID of 0. Enter. Network with a network address 192.168.10.8 with a wildcard mask of 0.0.0.3 with an area ID of 0. Enter, then exit. So next is configure router 2 with a loopback 0 interface. So interface loopback 0, enter IP address. Based on the given, it is 10.2.2.2 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.255. Then enter, then exit. Next is the OSPF cost for the serial interfaces. In serial 000, enter bandwidth of 64. Then in serial 001, then bandwidth of 64. Then end or exit. So let's check the results for the router 2. As you can see, same goes in R1. It is all in green check marks that indicates we configure all correctly. Close. Then let's proceed to router 3. Same process or commands that we're going to use in router 3. One line interface, then enter, enable, then config the hostname R3, then no IP domain lookup, then enable secret class, line console 0, then password Cisco, login, then line virtual teletype 0 to 15, then enter password, then Cisco, enter, then exit. Next is we're going to configure the IP address of fast Ethernet 00. So in FA0/0, enter. So the given IP address here is IP address 172.16.1.33 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.248. Then enter. No shutdown. Enter, then exit. Next is we're going to configure the serial interface. Int serial 0/0/0, then enter IP address. The given IP address is 192.168.10.6 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.252. Then enter, then no shutdown. Then exit. Next is the serial 001. Int serial 0/0/1. Then IP address 192.168.10.10. The subnet mask of 255.255.255.252. Then enter, then no shutdown. Then exit. Next is we're going to configure OSPF with a process ID number of 1. So the command will be router OSPF1. Then advertise all the networks. So network with the network address of 172.16.1.32 with a wildcard mask of 0.0.0.7 with an area ID of 0. Then enter. Next is network 192.168.10.4 with a wildcard mask of 0.0.0.3 with an area ID of 0. Then enter. And last is network with a network address of 192.168.10.8 with a wildcard mask of 0.0.0.3 with an area ID of 0. Then enter. Then exit. Next is we're going to configure the loopback interface. So the command will be int loopback 0. Then enter. The IP address given for router 3 is this one. IP address 10.3.3.3 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.255. Then enter, then exit. The next is we're going to configure the OSPF host with a cost of 1562. So the command will be interface serial 0/0/0, then enter IP OSPF cost. The command will be IP OSPF cost. It is a command to configure the cost metric manual for each interface. So the given is 1562, then enter. Then for serial 001, interface serial/0/1. IP OSPF cost 1562, then end. So let's check the results. So as you can see in router 3, we got all green check marks that indicates we configure all correctly. And lastly, we're going to configure the IP addresses in PC0, PC1, and PC2. So let's proceed. So click PC0 and then go to desktop, then IP configuration. So the given IP address in PC0 is 172.16.1.20 with the subnet mask of 255.255.255.240 and the default gateway is 172.16.1.17. Then no DNS server. So let's proceed to PC1. Click PC1 and go to desktop and IP configuration. The given IP address is 10.10.10.10 with a subnet mask of 255.255.0 and the default gateway will be 10.10.10.1. Then let's proceed to PC3. So, desktop, then IP configuration. The IP address will be 172.16.1.35 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.248 and the default gateway is 172.16.1.33. So as you can see in the completion percentage, it is already 100%. And let's check the results. So it stated, congratulations, guest, you completed the activity. As you can see, all are in green check marks and that indicates we configure all correctly. And as you can see in the total points, 89, completed items 89, required items 89. So that would be all and thank you.